The energy crisis cannot be overlooked in Asia. The problems in the Strait of Hormuz are hitting the region particularly hard. That's because a large part of their energy imports comes from the Gulf states, but no longer. The economic consequences are considerable: supply bottlenecks, long queues at petrol stations, and production stoppages. In some countries, even the rice harvest is at stake. At the very least, prices are rising. If the conflict continues, a region that has previously enjoyed dynamic growth could abruptly slow down.
In a scenario in which disruptions to energy markets persist into early next year, kind of a worst-case scenario, regional growth would be lower by 1.3 percentage points over the period 2026 to 2027, and inflation would be 3.2 percentage points higher.
India, for example, must import almost 90% of its crude oil, and much of this comes from the Gulf states, as does around 3/4 of its imported gas. Oil and gas are now in short supply. Restrictions have been imposed on industrial use, a disaster for energy-intensive industries such as glass production.
When there is a 20% drop in the gas supply, it forces us to cut production by about 40% because our furnace was made to operate at a specific fuel level to function efficiently. So we are operating at a 40% reduction of our production capacity.
The Indian government says the energy supply is secure, but prices are rising dramatically. Restaurants have had to close due to lack of gas. And although India is expanding renewable energies, the supply shortage is again making coal more important.
Even see what is happening in our kitchens in rural India. Now, because we don't have LPG to that an extent, it's not reaching the villages, they're shifting to coal, which is very bad. But what can you do? You have to cook your food. So therefore, it is that in immediate future, and if these conditions prevail, perhaps the use of fossil fuels like coal is going to go up.
Bangladesh has been one of the countries hit hardest. Diesel has also had to be rationed there, even for farmers.
Farmers really need a lot of fuel this season for their rice paddy irrigation. The government has set guidelines that we're sticking to, but we know it's not enough for the farmers.
There's nothing left for this rice farmer today. Like everyone else, he needs diesel for his water pumps. The young rice plant's development depends on irrigation. Many fields are already too dry, he says. Is there a threat of crop failure and famine? In the ASEAN states, almost 40% of oil imports come from the Gulf region, as do 62% of gas imports. And now?
When LNG prices go haywire, and countries are simply unable to afford or unable to procure available LNG cargoes, they're going to turn to alternative fuels for short-term responses. And in many cases, that's been coal, like we're seeing right now.
So, more reliance on coal in the short term, but not every country has it. And other fossil fuels such as gas and oil now seem less secure. Is this a chance for renewables?
The only good thing, or in the long run, it is that somewhere the renewable energy will become more affordable. And the moment it becomes more, or even it's able to compete, or it becomes cheaper than the conventional, then the next step will be, what is the capex? The midterm will be the subsidies shifting towards that, and long term will be that everyone will move towards renewable sources of energy.
In the long term, the crisis could therefore benefit renewables, but not everywhere. Every country has different needs. Japan, for example, imports much of its energy from the Gulf region. It has hardly any raw materials, but as an industrialized nation, it needs a lot of energy. Japan is already trying to become less dependent. But the expansion of offshore wind power has not worked as planned. Investors withdrew. More than 10 years after the Fukushima disaster, nuclear energy is also set to be expanded again, but the reactors are old. Despite its support for Ukraine, Japan feels compelled to participate in a Russian LNG plant. In the current crisis, however, the Prime Minister is promising the equivalent of $10 billion in support for the region. Thailand has suffered a price shock. Its entire energy supply depends almost solely on imports.
Thailand has only little coal, and it's mainly uses gas for power production, but you need oil for mobility. And for many industries, of course, for logistics, for the agricultural sector, which is very huge and important here, for fisheries, and people working in this area now, they feel the pinch immediately.
The same applies to the Philippines, where President Marcos declared an energy emergency back in March. The government promises subsidies, even to secure the food supply. People protested the Iran war in front of the US Embassy. The Philippines wants to further expand renewable energies, but it also wants an exemption from sanctions in the short term to import oil from Russia. The price shock is also being cushioned in Indonesia, with gas prices already lower. But rumours of price increases are making the population and politicians worry.
These emerging economies like Indonesia are very vulnerable actually to higher prices. So many politicians fear, they fear demonstrations when the prices go up. So what Indonesia is currently doing, as the world market prices go up, they double down on subsidies just to keep the people calm.
The cost is estimated at almost $6 billion for 2026. How long can this be endured? In Indonesia, it's about prices, not energy shortages. Its electricity is mainly generated from its huge coal deposits, which it also exports. Demand had actually fallen.
Indonesia's biggest coal export destination is China. And one of the reasons Indonesia panicked about its coal market and tried to reduce the output this year is that China import of coal start to plateau because they're absorbing a lot of renewable capacity.
Now, during the energy crisis, coal is back in demand in Asia in the short term. But for how long? And how is the crisis affecting the region?
I really think that the whole of the Asia-Pacific region, Southeast Asia, South Asia, East Asia, including China, is at a massive decision moment now with this latest crisis in the Middle East. Do they go down the route of becoming electro-tech, advanced, modern economies relying on solar PV, on battery storage, on electric vehicles, on other, high-end electrical equipment such as heat pumps and so on? Or do they stay in the old world and remain dependent on different types of fossil fuels, whether that be oil, gas, or coal?
A decisive moment also for South Korea, which has been badly affected by the energy crisis. It wants to import more coal and gas from Indonesia in the short term. The government also says it intends to expand renewable energies. Away from politics, the energy crisis is already affecting the packaging industry. Plastic packaging cannot be produced without petroleum.
We're seeing a rise in raw material prices and delays in supply, which mean we can't manufacture our products.
But his competitor is profiting. Here, the packaging is made mainly of paper.
At first, we started developing paper packaging in response to growing eco-friendly, sustainability, and ESG considerations, and client demand has increased steadily. With ongoing disruptions to the plastic supply, we expect further growth in demand for our paper and other alternative materials.
Is anything changing in the region? After all, according to estimates, Southeast Asia is responsible for around a third of the world's plastic waste. And China? It's the world's largest oil importer, but it buys from various regions and has built up large reserves. Despite the energy crisis, the International Monetary Fund forecasts 4.4% growth for China for 2026. The year has started strongly, and
we also have sizable policy support that the authorities are providing, which again is boosting growth. So the impact of the war is being mitigated by these factors.
China has also been an early adopter of renewable energies. and is now a global pioneer in the construction of wind and solar power plants. Is it a role model for eternal competitor India?
They're much bigger, and in fact, their technologies are great. In terms of pricing, the way they have reduced the cost of solar panels and so on. So, we should follow them as an example. But if they can do it, why can't we do it?
What will the energy crisis mean for Southeast Asia? It's still too early to say definitively, but it seems certain that energy demand will grow. Forecasts predict that the region will need 60% more energy by 2040.